Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you guys can hear me. My name is Chris Rita, and I know it's just about time to start. It's 12:05, so I want to thank everyone for being here. And Rich, is there any housekeeping information you'd like everyone to know before we get started?
Hey, Chris, thank you so much. This is Rich Gelber. I work at Crisis Support Services, and we're all happy that everyone's here. I just wanted to point out the reminders that are on the screen now, but it seems like everyone is incredibly well behaved, to make sure that your audio is muted. And then also, if you can turn off your video, that helps with bandwidth issues. Feel free to ask questions in the chat bar, and at the end of the session, hopefully we will get a chance to answer as many as we can. I also want to send a special thank you out to Rogers Behavioral Health, who is helping to sponsor this event. So thank you so much to them. And I will be putting a link to their website as well. I also want to remind you to I want to remind everyone to look at the website for www.crisissupport.org/CPM2020 that has the full range of panel discussions that are coming up for this entire month. And also we'll have other links of information about this topic and all the other topics we have talked about. So it's a gold mine of resources. Also, we're hoping to make a recording of this session and all the sessions available at the end of the month as well. Okay, Chris, great. We're really looking forward to this presentation.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here.
Yay.
So welcome everybody. Sorry for a little bit of technical stuff going on there, which was, last minute. We were kind of heard all kinds of things that weren't really supposed to be there. So, but thank you for your patience with that. And so my name is Chris Rita. I'm with Crisis Support Services of Alameda County. And I'm here today to talk about a little bit about COVID-19, how we can be more resilient, how we can have a little bit better mental wellness and connection with that, and also about self-compassion and how we can practice a little bit more around self-compassion and be a little kinder to ourselves, because I think right now we need to be a little kinder to ourselves. So please feel free to ask questions. I hope at the end we have a little bit of time to take questions. And Rich, if you're keeping an eye on questions, if there's something that comes up that's urgent, please feel free to interrupt me so that I can answer the question. That's fine too. Otherwise, we'll try to do that at the end of the workshop. Okay.
I don't know if you want to give me permission to interrupt, Chris, but
not really.
Okay, I will.
Okay. That's okay, Rich. I have faith in you. All right. So let's get started. All right. So COVID-19. Wow, who knew, right? Like March 12th, I had no idea that on March 13th, I'd be sent home from my office and wouldn't go back there again until not sure, don't know, uncertainty. What about buying toilet paper? That was a big one, right? When this first started, we couldn't find toilet paper anywhere. I don't know what that was about. I sometimes think that maybe that's, if we were Freudian, that would be because we are in our anal stage and we're obsessed with getting toilet paper for ourselves, but that's just me. It's a little bit weird, I know. But COVID-19, and with that came this idea of being apart from our families, being apart from our loved ones, being apart from our friends, being apart from our colleagues. And we all thought, I think, that we'd all be back together soon, right? In a short amount of time. And now it's September and the holidays are around the corner and things are not going back to normal as quickly as I think many of us thought that they would. So what does that mean for us when we talk about COVID-19? When we talk about how do we manage this kind of experience for ourselves? For many people, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult experience. And people have been impacted by COVID-19 in ways that are sometimes surprising. We feel very alone sometimes, and yet we're all in this together. And um, we have to stay 6 feet apart with a mask, and so things are different. And so how do we manage this? And we hear a lot of things about um, what's happening mental health wise with COVID. How are we dealing with that? Is this going to be a mental health crisis? And recently in the San Francisco Chronicle, they did an article about the pandemic and suicides. And I would be a little remiss if I didn't mention something about suicide, considering that's what this month is. Yesterday was World Suicide Prevention Day, and September is National Suicide Prevention Month. And today is an anniversary, a remembrance of 9/11. So we have a lot of things going on right now. 9/11 was a time when we were brought together by a crisis, that it was all of us, not just one of us, that was affected by this crisis of this terrorist attack. And it's the same thing today. It's all of us, not just one of us. And this one is worldwide. We're all in this together as a world. But when we talk about the pandemic, we also have to talk a little bit about mental health, and that's my focus, right? And the Chronicle report, the article said that the Bay Area crisis centers are experiencing an increase of 25% or more in high-risk calls, suicide calls, as a result of this pandemic. This reflects what's happening nationally too. So it's not just happening here, it's happening everywhere. According to the Centers for Disease Control, and I want to get this right, so 10% of Americans seriously considered suicide in June, and that's considerably higher than the usual. It's usually not that high. So that's concerning to those of us that work in this field. And in California, because that's where we are, most of us anyway, the proportion of people who reported symptoms of depression rose 6%, up to 31%. So it's certainly this experience of COVID is having an effect on all of us. Job losses and financial stress resulting from the coronavirus are exacerbating behavioral health disorders. And that just makes sense, right? So what do we do? How do we manage this? How can we get better about this? What can we do to build our resilience for situations like this? And that's what we're going to talk about today, really. I have a person that I don't know how to explain who he is, but his name is Jeffrey R. Holland, and he's a speaker, he's a religious man, and he sorry, someone is making noise here. So I'm sorry, I apologize for that. So what Jeffrey R. Holland said about COVID is his life was very much busy and active, and he traveled quite a bit. And so COVID stopped all of that for him, and it stopped it. And he's home now all the time in his house. And he said it was an interesting experience to slow down. It was an opportunity to slow down, to take a look at himself. And I thought as he was saying that, we could take a look at ourselves at the same time. What are the things that we love about ourselves? What are the things that we'd like to change about ourselves? How can we do that? And how can we be helpful to others? And what Jeffrey R. Holland said was, it took me a minute to look in the mirror and say, what do I like about Jeff? What don't I like about Jeff? And I thought that was a really kind of good place to start when we think about COVID. How can we turn this into something that's an opportunity for growth instead of an opportunity for retraction, right? And I love Ram Dass's saying, what can you do for others at this particular moment in our lives? I can do nothing for you but work on myself. And you can do nothing for me but work on yourself. And that's actually quite profound, but also really the truth. If I want to help you, the best way I can help you is to work on me, help me, and then I can be open to helping you. So that I always love that particular quote from Ram Dass. And so as we talk about COVID, the next thing we need to talk about is building our resilience to COVID. How do we begin to be more resilient? How do we begin to, if we feel like we don't have a lot of resilience? I sometimes feel like that, I'll be honest with you. I sometimes feel like, man, I don't have much resilience. I'm not very flexible. I'm not very, I don't adapt to change very well. All of those things. And yet I know that that's part of resilience, and I want to be more resilient. So how can I build that resilience for myself? And the one thing I can do is start by working on myself. And so here's some things we can do to help build our resilience. So building resilience, it's step by step. It's not, I'm going to do it this way and it's going to happen this way right now. And sometimes we take a couple steps and then we go a couple steps back. And then we take a couple more steps and then we go a couple more steps back. And that's pretty normal. So to build our connections is the first place we want to go. We want to build our relationships. We want to increase them. Even during COVID, we have opportunities to connect with one another. And I'll share a story. I like to share stories, so you'll humor me, if you will. I have this one colleague and friend, actually, I went to college with her, and she is someone that we do workshops for, about once or twice a year. And always at that once or twice a year, after we're done with the workshop, we go out and have coffee because that's what we do, right? And so COVID comes along, and when this first happened, she called me kind of in a panic about I'm just panicked. I don't know what to do. And so we talked, and that was fine. And we couldn't meet for coffee. So we left the conversation back in March as, well, as soon as this is over in a couple of weeks, we'll get together for coffee. Well, as it turns out, this went on, as we all know, a little bit longer. And so she called me, and we determined that the best way to build this connection again between the two of us was to meet online. And so we met online, each of us with our little coffee cup, and sat and talked for an hour. And you would think that online you can't really make that great of a connection, right? But I think you can. And I think it's important for us to do that and to be able to make those connections, even though they might be online. Another quick story about connection. There was a couple of weeks, and I think all of us have had these weeks where I was just in a funk. I was just funked out, right? And the funniest thing happened. I got a little note in the mail. And I was so happy that I got this little note that just said, thinking about you, hope you're doing well. And I thought, how interesting is it that even though I can't be with this person, I can feel connected through a note. Now we know in suicide prevention, actually, that those kinds of notes go a long way. That someone who is struggling, when they receive a note from someone or a communication, especially if they've been in the hospital or they've been really struggling, that can make a big difference for them. That builds connection. That builds that sense of support with each other. We can even build connections on the internet while we're talking on Zoom or on Google Hangouts or on GoToWebinar or whatever other platform you're using. And one of the ways is to actually make eye contact with the person that's speaking. Now, I know they can't see you, you can't see them, but you can actually make that eye contact and be present with them, be really present. And that helps. It doesn't alleviate not being able to be present in the same room, but it helps a little bit. We can also build our connections with people by using what we call on the crisis line, nonverbal communications, right? So now we have to wear a mask. We have to stay 6 feet apart. and we have to wear a mask. Okay. So it's a little hard sometimes to even hear someone because everything feels a little muffled when you have a mask on. But there are ways that we can still communicate to one another and help build our relationships, even with those that we don't know, with the workers in the grocery store and with those people around us most often. And the ways we do that are the same ways we do that on the phone. We can't see people when we talk to them on the phone, but we do build connection with them by those nonverbal communication skills. So how can we do that? Eye contact. It's a big one. Actually saying hello to people instead of just, kind of expecting them to know that you're smiling at them. Instead of smiling because they can't see the smile, right? Say hello. Some people actually say, I'm smiling at you right now. Okay, that's going a little bit far, I know, but at least you can say hello. This happens a lot when we're standing in a grocery store line or when we're standing talking to the checker at the store, or we're driving through a fast food restaurant and everybody's masked up, but you can still make that contact with people. So keep those connections going. You can make connections with your family and increase connections. Although we often feel like this is a time where we can't make connections, I think this is a time where if we want to, we can build really strong connections with people, stronger perhaps than we've ever had before. But it's going to take some work. So build up your connections. Find out what you need to do that. And then build and foster your wellness. So here's the deal with that. Take care of yourself emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of those aspects of your life. Take good care of yourself. Eat well. Drink plenty of water. Get some exercise. You don't even have to get a lot of exercise. Just go outside once in a while. Not today. Don't go outside today. But when the air clears a little bit more, be outside. Make sure you're getting enough sleep. And that's hard for people right now. I've had a lot of friends tell me that they're just not sleeping as good as they used to. Practice good sleep hygiene. Go to bed at the same time every night. Get up at the same time in the morning. That can help adjust our resilience. I heard someone say recently, you mean to be well, I have to get up off the couch and stop eating chips? Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much it. So be willing to do those things that nourish you in all aspects of your being. Have a purpose. Build a purpose in your life. What is your purpose in life? This is sort of an existential question, right? What is our purpose in life? What do we want to accomplish in life? What do we want to do with our lives? Where are we on that road? And here's the thing about that. Explore that fully. What makes your life worth living? That's another way of looking at this. What is it that makes your life worth living? What helps you to get through the day? What gives you joy? What gives you pleasure? What gives you happiness? What fills you with warmth? Okay, so that's building that purpose in your life. Build on your healthy thoughts. So we all have good thoughts, or healthy thoughts, we'll call them. We all have unhealthy thoughts. So work with building up those healthy thoughts, the ones that don't beat you up, the ones that don't say that you're negative, that you're bad, or that you need to do this, or you'd be better if you could do that, or you needed to get this job or that job, or whatever those are for you. Build on the positive thoughts that I'm enough. Right now, sitting right here in front of my computer screen, I'm enough, just like this, and so are you. And that's a good, healthy thought and a good place to be in helping us build our resilience, to change, to know that no matter what happens, I'm enough. I know what I'm doing. I've got this. Do we fail? Oh, you bet. That doesn't mean you're not going to fail. We all fail. And that's a part of building resilience, actually. We can't have good resilience unless we've experienced failure. And so I know that so many of us think, oh, I failed, this is terrible. But actually, failure teaches you the most lessons in life. That's where we learn the most. That's where we have opportunities for tremendous growth in who we are and building tremendous resilience. So don't be afraid of that failure, but always come back to the place where you are enough, just like you are. Okay. And then when all of this still doesn't seem to be working, or you feel like maybe it's something more than you can handle on your own and working with, maybe your friends or your colleagues, don't hesitate ever to get professional support when you need it. Professional support can be a lot of different things. I know when a lot of times when in the mental health field we say professional support, we mean a psychologist or a therapist, and I mean more than that. I mean, sure, a marriage and family therapist, a licensed clinical social worker, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, all of those are great helpers and definitely very often needed, and we should call on them. But that's not all there is for professional help. Sometimes professional help means speaking to a religious leader, speaking to a peer, getting in a group, even online groups, going to a 12-step program. All of those things can be professional help. So reach out for that. Find out what professional help will work the best for you. Even calling a crisis line can be professional help, because we're here to listen, to help you build your resilience, to hear your story, to help you get through this day. And that also helps build our resilience as we're moving on in our lives. So resilience is really important. And I love this particular little cartoon. And life is not about how fast you run or how high you climb, but how well you bounce. And that's really what resilience is, right? It's about our ability to be able to bounce back, to come back from something that's difficult, to be able to deal with the adversities in our lives and be flexible enough and bouncy enough to come back and be better than we were before. So that's when we talk about that, that's important, an important part of resilience. I also love this quote. And when we talk about resilience, sometimes it's about how we are able to be in a situation. And I love this. It's a lovely thing to learn from water. Adjust yourself in every situation and in any shape, but most importantly, find your own way to flow. There is no one right way to be resilient. There is no one right way to have mental health, mental wellness. It's individual. And each of us are going to find our own way to do that and be able to go with the flow, if you will. And each one of us will do it perfectly for ourselves. So that's an important thing when we think about resilience. Remember, it's not just being the way that someone says we have to be. It's much more important to find your own way, be your own person, and celebrate that. Celebrate that ability that you have, because that makes people want to connect with you. When people see that you're the way that you are and it's good, that's good with you and you flow the way that you do, people naturally are drawn to that because they want more of that. And so we're able to make better connections at that point, or new connections often. Okay. So when we talk about resilience, we also want to spend a minute talking about mental wellness. And what is that? Because resilience and mental wellness go together pretty closely, actually. It's a pretty interesting thing how they are combined together. And so let's look at a definition of what exactly is mental wellness. It's a key component to establishing and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, not just your mental well-being, but your physical well-being as well. Those two things are very highly correlated. If I feel good physically, I'm also going to feel good mentally, and vice versa. According to World Health Organization, and this is the actual official definition, mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which the individual realizes their own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. And I think when I read that, it's not my favorite definition, but it really does speak to what we want to do and what we want to accomplish. We want to be able to contribute. We want to be able to connect to our community. We want to be able to be helpful and make a difference. And we're all able to do that. Of course, external and internal factors influence our mental health all the time. COVID is one of them. And I can think of half a dozen others, and I know that you can too. Divorce is one. Loss of a job is one, even outside of COVID. All these other things that are happening. Death is one of them. Feeling suicidal is one of them that can influence both our mental and physical health. So we want to be able to have that resilience and then develop more skills to be mentally well, to create a mental wellness for ourselves, even a mental wellness plan. And hopefully you'll get some tips today on how to improve mental wellness. I think we all can use some tips on how to improve our mental wellness and sustain our mental wellness. And so we'll spend some time talking about what you can do to do that. A few months ago, I went to a virtual seminar, summit actually, called Never Alone, the Never Alone Summit. And one of the keys of this summit was to improve our mental wellness and what we needed to do each day. And Mariel Hemingway, I was really touched by her talk during this, and I'd like to share with you her 12 steps to improve mental wellness. And if you are thinking about what you can do to feel more mentally well, or you need to make some changes in your life, I think these 12 steps can really help us begin that journey and begin that path. And the first one starts with something pretty simple. Practice gratitude every day. Write down what you're grateful for and actually say it out loud. I have found that if I say it out loud, it makes it more real for me. That's just me. It may not be true for you, and that's okay. But practice that gratitude every day. Practicing gratitude not only allows you to look at what you're grateful for, but it actually changes how your brain begins to work and how we feel. So that's an important practice to do every day. Drink water. Lots of it. Most of us are dehydrated, actually. And so drink lots of water. Get rid of a soda a day and drink a cup of water. Get rid of a coffee a day and drink water instead. Just add a little bit at a time. Sometimes it's hard to drink water. I find it, when it's hot, it's easy. And when it's like this, it's not so easy. So get outside. Go outside when we can, not today. But when we can, go outside. Watch the sunrise. And notice how the sunrise brings a level of hope to our lives. If you can do it, if you can watch the sunrise, do it with your feet on the ground, do it outside and put your feet on the ground, barefoot if possible, and just focus on your breath as the sun rises. I learned a very important lesson working on the crisis lines about the sunrise and the hope that it brings to people and to me. We had a client on the crisis line many years ago, and she was a wonderful, wonderful client. And we'd had a very difficult night, and she'd been having a lot of hard problems. And it was one of those nights where it was sort of touch and go. I worked the overnight shift. I was there from midnight to 8 a.m. And I talked to her almost every hour that night. And she called me as the sun was just coming up, and she said, "Can you see outside right now?" And I said, "No." And I said, "I can see just a window around the corner." And she said, "Okay, well, the sun is coming up. And I'm sitting on my patio and I'm having a cup of coffee and smoking a cigarette. And I can see the sun come up, and I know that I'm going to live another day. And that the darkness is gone once the sun comes up." And I thought that was such a beautiful way of talking about getting through that night. And for each of us, when we have difficult times, maybe watching the sunrise can help us focus on the new day that brings. Do your best to meditate. Meditate for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever works. And while you're meditating, watch your breath. Just notice your breath. Don't do anything about it. Just notice it as it goes in and out. because we do that lots of times every day. If you have thoughts that distract you, that's okay. When you can, come back to the meditation and your breath. Love yourself. Now, this is a difficult one for some of us. So actually say to yourself, I love you. I love Chris. It's okay for me to love myself. And if you can't quite get there yet, say, I like myself. And do it in a mirror. It's much better if you do it in a mirror. You get a lot more out of this, and you really begin to feel it when you're looking at yourself. Chant it, say it out loud, use affirmations, things like, I believe something wonderful will happen today. And you'd be surprised how it changes how you feel every day. When you have mundane tasks, such as washing the dishes, really wash your dishes. Just be really present with washing your dishes. So what does the dish feel like in the soapy water? What does how does it feel to wash it and get it clean? How hot is the water? All of those things. Slow down. This is a great opportunity when our life is slower to slow down and actually notice what we are doing. Be present with those simple things in life. You might be surprised how much joy and pleasure they give you. Say thank you for whatever, to everybody, anybody, your kids, the post person, the grocery clerk, your parents, your children, your partner. We take those people for granted so much. And this is an opportunity to say thank you for what they're doing for us. Thank you for emptying the garbage. Thank you for doing the dishes. Thank you for vacuuming the floor. Thank you for packing my groceries. Thank you for working today. Those are things that can be really helpful. When fear and anxiety take place, take a breath, step back, and say, I love like myself. Remember that. You can't control much in our lives. We really can't. There's not a whole lot that we can control, but we can control how and when we react to things. So taking a step back, bringing ourselves to the present, and reminding that we love ourselves, it can be a really helpful thing when we feel a lot of anxiety and fear. Get out in nature as much as you can. Take your shoes off, walk in the grass, walk on the dirt. That actually is a really releasing activity when you actually walk on the grass, and it feels really good too. Walking barefoot helps. It helps to connect to the earth and helps our brain and body connect. So it's a really great practice. And more than that, walking on cool grass always feels really good. Eat good food, eat well, real food, clean food. Feeding the body is really important. So to the best of our abilities, do those things. Does that mean you can never have a burger? Absolutely not. You certainly can, but do our best to eat good, clean, healthy food. It keeps us both mentally and physically healthy and well. Take gratitude breaks. Just take times to thank yourself and others, to be grateful. Give yourself a hug, and we can do this, and we need to touch more right now. As human beings right now on the planet, because of COVID, we need to touch more. We need to be touched, and we need to touch others. So if you're living alone, this can be a really difficult thing. And even when you're living with other people, you may not feel comfortable hugging them. So hug yourself. Give yourself a hug. In fact, I'll encourage you right now to give yourself a little hug. Actually, really hug yourself. And that can help you to feel better too. It releases oxytocin, and that's the feel-good hormone. We also get that from touching our dogs and our cats, mostly dogs, actually, interestingly enough. And that the same oxytocin is released when we make eye contact, even with a mask. So those are things that can help release that, and that's that feel-good hormone. And when all else fails, when we just really want to feel more connected and feel more sense of community, do something for someone else. Be in service to the people around you. Service does not need to be a big thing. Service was the day I got the little card in the mail. Service is the day that someone thanked me service is the day where I thank someone else. And so service can be little acts or big acts. Sometimes it is big acts, and those are also wonderful, but the little acts sometimes mean so much more to people when they come, especially when they come from the heart. And we can do this even on Zoom, on Google Hangouts, on a phone call. I know a phone call. What? You want me to call someone? Text, whatever it is. But you can do that. Do something for someone else. Be of service. Those are some pretty good tips. My suggestion is, when I got these, I thought, which one am I going to do? Which one am I going to start with? And I thought I'd start with just one. And I started with gratitude. I started at the top of the list, and just sitting down every morning when I get up and note what I'm grateful for. And at the end of the day, what am I grateful for? And it's interesting to do that. And it's a great process, a great practice to start. So being connected, that's also a big part of resiliency, a big part of mental wellness. And the bottom line here is we need each other. And so how do we need each other? Jewel Love is the CEO of Champions Mental Health. She reminds us that being connected is related to our purpose in life. There are 3 things that can help us be more connected with others and ourselves. We've talked a lot about being connected to others, but it's important to be connected to yourself too, to understand yourself. And so that's the shadow work part, right? That's the part of ourselves that are hidden from us, the parts that we don't like very much, the parts that we don't acknowledge, and we don't want to see, and we don't really want others to see it either. But exploring that shadow can actually bring inner peace to us, and it helps us align and share our story. And when we do that, people learn from that, and we learn from that. So do that shadow work. Don't be afraid to look at all the parts of yourself. We all have spiritual gifts, each one of us, and they're all unique. Each one of us has a gift that we were given. Some of us have lots and lots, and some of us may not think we have any, but the truth is you do. We all have gifts, and we need to share those gifts. We need all the different voices in the choir here. We don't need all the same voices. If a choir only had sopranos, it wouldn't be a very full and robust choir. And our spiritual gifts are those gifts that we can share with others and fill the choir, if you will, in our communities. Find your purpose, find your meaning in life, find how you can improve your mental health. Find purpose. What makes your life worth living? I love that question. We ask people that are suicidal sometimes that question. What makes your life worth living? And it's a great reflective question, a great journal question, to really sit down and talk about what makes my life worth living, what gives me purpose. Who do you want to speak with when you find your purpose? Who is it that you are working for or with? What gifts can you give because of your purpose? How is your purpose aligned with your spiritual gifts? And what community needs your message and your gifts? Because our communities do. We need each other, and we need each other's gifts. Finding purpose helps us connect. It builds resiliency, and it helps us be in tune with others and with ourselves. Well, I feel like I've been talking just way too much here. So I'm going to suggest that we do a little breathing technique here. And this breathing technique, it's about 5 minutes long. And it's called the quick coherence technique. It's from Heart Math, as you can see on the screen. And it's a really quick little breathing technique that anybody can do anytime. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it. So wiggle around, get comfortable in your chair. And I will give it a shot, and she will walk you through the whole technique. Okay. Lost my cursor. There we go.
Hello, my name is Jackie Kukuska, and I'm a nurse educator with the Department of Nursing and Learning and Development. I'd like to walk through the quick coherence technique with you. So let's begin. Make yourself comfortable. You can practice this technique with your eyes opened or closed. Settle into your chair. Uncross your arms, uncross your legs. Release all the tension from your body, feeling fully supported. Now bring your attention and awareness to your heart. Focus on the center of your chest and simply notice your heart and the heart space around it. While continuing to focus on your heart, take some slow, easy, refreshing breaths. Breathing in and breathing out. Try to imagine your breath is coming in and out of your heart space. See it coming in, swirling around your heart, and then slowly going back out. Now I invite you to add a positive heart feeling. Recall a time when you felt good, a situation that filled your heart with joy, excitement, happiness, peacefulness, or gratitude. Try to relive that memory now. Really tap into the emotions you were experiencing. The key is to shift from your head to your heart and shift from thinking about the situation to feeling the emotion. Simply imagine you're back in time, reliving this moment. Continue heart-focused breathing in and out. And if your mind wanders, that's okay. Gently bring your attention back to your heart space. Breathe and recall your positive memory. When you're ready, slowly bring your attention back to the room. Open your eyes if they're closed, and try to hold on to the way you feel right now as you go about the rest of your day. By taking heart-focused breaths while recalling a positive emotion, you can begin to regulate your emotions in the moment to stop the drain that emotionally charged situations can have on your system, and instead begin adding energy to your system anytime, anywhere. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I hope that, I love that technique actually, and I've used it a number of times to recall that place in myself when things have been felt really overwhelming. And I found it to be helpful. I hope you do too. That's my goal in sharing it with you, is that you find it helpful as well. So the last piece of resilience and mental wellness during COVID and all those other things, right, is this idea of self-compassion. Many times you'll hear us talk about self-care, and I want to just be really clear. This is not self-care. This is not a to-do list of things that you do when you feel bad. That's a great thing to have, by the way, that to-do list. Get your nails done, go to coffee, you know, whatever those things are. Those are wonderful things to have, but this is a little deeper and can help us really begin to have compassion for ourselves. It's really no different than having compassion for others. And the word compassion really means to suffer with. And so, as we know, we can't avoid suffering in this life. It's here, it's part of our human existence. But to have compassion for others, you must first notice that they're suffering. To have compassion for yourself, you have to be able to notice that you're suffering as well. We feel, we're moved by others suffering. So our heart responds to their pain. We usually have a physical reaction to that. Um, oftentimes when this happens, when we see someone else suffering, we want to help. We feel warmth towards them. We feel caring towards them. And we want to be able to practice that for ourselves. It involves acting the same way toward yourself when you're having a difficult time as you would act towards someone else that was having a difficult time. Instead of being judging and critical of yourself about your inadequacies and your shortcomings and your failings and all of those things, be kind to yourself the same way you would to someone else. And understand that we all have personal failings. We all have times when things aren't great. But whoever said we were supposed to be perfect? No one ever did. And perfection is individual. Like I said earlier, you're perfect right now, just as you are, without ever having to change a thing. There are some tips about self-compassion. There's the 3 elements, they call them, of self-compassion. And the first element is self-kindness versus self-judgment. Self-compassion means being warm and understanding towards ourselves when we suffer, when we fail, when we feel inadequate. And sometimes that's really hard because we're not socialized to be compassionate to ourselves. Many of us are not socialized in that way, I should say. And so it's a practice, right? We have to get used to doing this. It's changing how we work and how we think about ourselves. Common humanity versus isolation. And what this really means is that frustration at not having things exactly as we want them. This is often accompanied by those feelings of isolation, as if I were the only person suffering or making mistakes, right? No one else has this experience. We need to move away in this world from the I and move more towards the we, and be more compassionate towards everyone, including ourselves. We recognize the suffering and personal inadequacies as a part of our shared human experience. Everyone feels this way sometimes. Mindfulness versus over-identification. Self-compassion requires taking a balanced approach to our negative emotions so that feelings are neither suppressed nor exaggerated. In no way do we want to suppress our feelings, and we also don't want to over-exaggerate them either, but we want them to be balanced, to know that negative feelings are as important, actually, as positive feelings. And remember that mindfulness is non-judgmental. I know sometimes when we think about mindfulness, we think about meditation. Well, we've got to do it just right. And, can I keep my mind focused for 10 minutes while they do this, blah, 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 right? And I loved one of the teachers in the summit said, in the Never Alone Summit said, your mind's supposed to wander when you meditate. It does that. We just need to notice it and then bring it back to the breath or back to the meditation, and not criticize ourselves for that. I'll give you an example of this. I had a very good friend of mine was involved a few weeks ago in a very bad fire. She was hurt quite badly, and I was speaking with her on the phone, and she was being really hard on herself. And I said to her, and I want you to try this experiment as well. When you're being really hard on yourself, try this experiment. And that experiment is, pretend that that story is being told to you by someone else. What would you tell them? And then go and stand in the mirror and tell yourself what you would tell them. I hope that makes sense. But if I'm telling this terrible thing that happened to me, then I need to go stand in front of the mirror and speak back to myself. What would I tell myself if I was coming from a place of compassion and caring? And she was very funny about it. She looked at me and she said, I guess I would tell myself that I don't need to be so hard on myself and I don't need to be so perfect all the time. Yeah. That wellness comes in stages. She was mad because she wasn't getting well fast enough. So just these are all suggestions for helping us build our own sense of resiliency, our own sense of mental wellness, and our own sense of self-compassion. When all else seems to be lost, remember to breathe. Breathe, allowing yourself to feel your chest, like we did with that meditation. Feel the air, feel it fill your chest. Breathe while thinking about thinking and caring for someone, thinking about and caring for someone. Think about someone you care about as you breathe. Breathe while feeling cared about. Breathe with a sense of love for all that is around you. And that can sometimes help us get more centered. I'm at the end of my presentation. I hope that you were able to take a few tips away that you can apply in your own life. I love this particular Buddhist saying, if you take care of the minutes, the years will take care of itself. And I always remember that if we stay really present focused, the rest will just happen as we go along. So, Rich, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'll say one last thing. If anyone is interested in the handouts or the PowerPoint or anything like that, please feel free to email me. I'll be happy to shoot them off to you. If you have any questions or anything like that, also please feel free to contact me. So, Rich, are there any questions?
Sure. I had a question. I was wondering if you had any good, quick little exercises for helping to bring your thinking back into a positive place.
Okay.
If you're feeling like you're in a bad negative loop of thoughts.
First is recognizing that you're there. A lot of times we don't recognize that we're there. We're swirling down and we don't realize we're going down this road, right, of negative thoughts. That's when I'll share what I do. When I find myself there, I usually stop, take a break, take a couple of breaths, really focus on my breathing, in and out. Because usually I also feel, I don't know about you, Rich, but I also feel a lot of anxiety at that particular moment, usually. So I focus on my breathing and then start to think about the things that are positive in my life, the things that I'm grateful for, the things that I have gratitude for, the things that are going right. And remember to show myself some self-compassion. And a lot of times, sometimes we just have to go through that too. That's the other side of it, is sometimes we can't talk ourselves or bring ourselves out of it. So we just have to accept that this is how I feel right now. And sometimes that's the easiest way actually to get through that place. Also reach out for a friend, reach out for connection. A lot of times when we feel that way, connection is something that can help us a lot.
Great. Thank you. That's wonderful. It was a wonderful talk.
Thank you.
I want to say that a recording of this talk will be available towards the end of the month. I'm going to put into the chat now some of our upcoming panel discussions. And I'm putting it in there, and also some links. I encourage people to check out the one link at Suicide Prevention Month 2020, SPM2020, that has our website, that has additional resources, has a listing of all of our upcoming workshops and resources related to that. So great. Thank you. So if no one has any other questions, thank you so much, Chris. This was a wonderful session. This was really fun.
Great. Have a good day, everybody.
Yay.